Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Invin and today what I'm going to be bringing you guys is the update dev blog that we saw yesterday, and this one was released just 12 hours ago, so around 5 AM for me, so obviously I'm just getting to cover this one now. But basically it is an update on the current issues we have in the game and kind of a follow-up to the update 1.1 on New World Into the Void, and it kind of covers some of the secret updates which we saw, which I haven't really covered here on the channel, mainly because I wasn't sure whether they were intended or not, so this clears some of that up, as well as some of the stability issues and other things that players have been picking up on in the game. So what I'm going to do is read through this and break it down for you guys, explain how it impacts the game and how we can expect to see things moving as we do go forward. So jumping into the message here, as you guys can see on screen, it's by Trevzor FTW, and he is a community manager for New World here on the forums, and he says, "Greetings adventurers, thank you for your feedback and questions since our third edition of update on current issues dev blog. We continue collecting your feedback and questions to find trends of active issues you, our community, are interested in learning more about. We appreciate everybody's interest into our communication and where we are going with New World, and we want to continue being transparent and communicative on how we plan to reach our goals and address outstanding issues." So, as you can see, I think personally they're doing a very, very good job of interacting with the community. Yes, there's been a fair few issues, but yes, every single time they're on the forums, they are interacting. Every time there's a ticket up, they're kind of responding to it. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, we need to give them credit for, so I do think they are doing a good job, but let's see what they've got to say in this dev blog here. So it says, stability and performance in game. We released an update today that we believe improves stability and are working feverishly on a fix for performance. The Void Gauntlet introduced a problem with status effects, where they are using approximately 10 times the bandwidth that they should, resulting in performance issues when on multiple status effects, not isolated to Void Gauntlets, are fired off. This obviously impacts wars, invasions, and any group areas where players are using weapons with status effects. We've isolated the issue and are confident that we'll have a fix released to players once it has been thoroughly tested. Not catching this prior to release was a mistake on our part and a net result of trying to go too fast. Going forward, we strive to improve the quality of our releases. More details on release timing will be made available as soon as we have validated the fixes internally. So essentially what they're saying there obviously is we went from like 1.04 or 0.5 all the way up to 1.1, so they kind of did a lot all at once, and essentially they're saying they think they went through that too fast. I would agree. I do think it was a much needed update though, so I think although it is a problem for now, if they can get this fixed in the next day or two, overall, it's going to be a good update, because we did need new content, fresh content coming into the game, because a lot of us who've been playing since day one, you know, played the betas, played everything else, we were maxed out. We were really hitting the top end of everything we could get, nearing that 590, 600 gear score, void armor all ready to go, so something new, some extra stuff into the game, in my opinion, was much needed. Next issue here they've covered is lack of transparency on penalties/appeals, and here they've said, understanding the messaging received when an account has had a penalty applied can be difficult, and we realise that the categories are too broad and may not provide enough information to players as to what they did that triggered the penalty. There are some steps we are going to make to address this. First, we will be publishing some support articles that better address and provide insight into the categories and how these categories are tied to the code of conduct and terms of service. They will also provide insight into the penalties, duration, and the appeal process. Next, we are looking at the appeal process to provide more timely and better communication from acknowledgement that the appeal was received and the time expected for a reply. Next, we are revamping the penalty messaging that is seen in-game, and the goal will be to provide an additional clarity to the player actions that violated the code of conduct. So essentially, what they're going to be doing there is overall giving us a clearer understanding of what actually is a TOS breach, what counts as a code of conduct breach, why that account's been banned, and give us some extra depth on the in-game screen if you have been banned, why that's happened. Now personally, obviously I have never been banned, but I do know that some other fellow kind of creator type people have been banned for things, not necessarily by exploiting as well, and obviously through appeals have got that back, but it's kind of a little bit odd. I've also seen instances on Reddit where people have been mass reported just because they were a good player and they wanted them out of the war. Obviously, that's now been resolved mostly for the main part, but again, just receiving that extra clarity in-game will be very vital to kind of see where people, and from like a guild leader's perspective, when my company is in-game and someone says, oh, I've been banned, my standpoint on that is get rid of them, because we don't stand any toleration of breach of TOS at all. But sometimes they're insisting they've done nothing, you know, that breaches TOS. So having that extra clarity where I'll say, okay, well, pass me a screenshot of what it says, will be absolutely a lot better from a leadership point of view as well. So I really appreciate that one. Looking then at moderation, both in-game and in community spaces, regardless of where you're participating, whether it's in-game or through community spaces like the forums or the Discord, we heavily enforce our code of conduct to ensure a positive and constructive environment. We want everybody to feel comfortable participating in a tournament and online. We hear the feedback about inconsistency of penalties applied to player accounts and are implementing processes to address this issue. Please continue submitting reports of players in-game and flagging threads and comments in the forums from players who are violating the code of conduct. The teams to go through each report to determine the context behind the behaviour and the player moderation history before taking action. As we are all human, it's possible that some unsavoury actors are let through the cracks, or someone may have been flagged erroneously, but we will take corrective action as soon as this should occur. We have some items that we are looking at into making moderation more transparent, whether it's finding the mechanisms to implement an in-game communication system to issue warnings or suspensions, or a way to communicate if a report you submitted was actioned on. We are also working on a few support articles that will help clarify our moderation processes, so please keep your eye out on those for when these articles are released. So essentially they're going for a more transparent approach. Endgame warning system would be really, really good, especially for people who are spamming. I don't think that gold sellers and bots it's going to make any odds, because obviously it's not people, so they're not going to care about a warning. We also got here learnings from our PTR. This month we launched our first version of the public test realm. I wanted to take a moment to thank everybody for all your support and valuable feedback. It has been exciting to see the number of players actively providing feedback and reporting bugs both in-game and through the forums. Moving forward, we see the public test realm as an important tool in our development process, and we'll continue to see us invest and improve public testing process. We want to acknowledge that we have heard your observations, especially in terms of the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet nerfs, but the buffs to the Great Axe, the reticle design for ranged weapons. While you won't always see immediate changes that reflect the feedback that we receive, this doesn't mean it's being ignored and that we won't see the changes made in the future that address particular concerns surfaced by our PTR testers and players. Some changes like weapon balancings and tunings are things that we will be consistently monitoring and adjusting as New World matures. Other changes may just need additional time for development and testing. So, in other words, what they're saying there is, yeah, they're thinking they might go back on the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet nerfs to bring them back up, because obviously now the Great Axe and the Warhammer are very, very good compared to those. A lot of people using them, which makes sense. But other stuff there, like obviously the reticle design, they're obviously looking to implement something like that, I would imagine, down the line, but it just needs more time for them to develop that and add it in successfully into the game. But obviously PTR has helped with that, which is really cool. They've also said when it comes to weapon balancing in particular, we will regularly adjust and tune these numbers as we gather and review your feedback paired with the game data. Especially with the introduction of new weapons, weapon balance will always be in flux. You can rely on us to continue listening, observing and adjusting accordingly. So essentially, if you don't like the current meta or the current kind of best weapon, just wait a couple of weeks. They're going to be fluidly changing these things to bring everything up and down in tune with each other to try and get as much balance as possible. Kind of like if any of you have played Warzone, how those guns keep changing to try and balance them out, that sort of thing. Or things like when you're getting into a new game and there's different armor sets, as we've seen. Obviously going forward, we could see some armor sets, different ones coming from New World itself. So, you know, we'll kind of have to wait and see. And I would imagine that all those type of balance things will just be a constant cycle of trying to balance them out with newer things, adjustments, seeing how those adjustments work, rebalancing. So just bear with them, basically, is what they're saying. In upcoming releases, you can expect to see more changes that reflect the feedback that we have received from you, our community. We will continue to seek out opportunities for you to provide early patch feedback and help shape the future of New World. So thank you again for all of your support and feedback. In other words, look out, there should be another PTR coming for future updates, which is a really, really good move in my opinion. Now we've got undocumented changes in updates. This, for me, is a really, really big one. We saw some strange things happening with 1.1, and so this is going to be interesting. They've said here that we are sorry that a number of undocumented changes made it into the 1.1 Into the Void update. This update includes many changes the team made months ago before we branched our launch build. This long time frame and the size of the patch led to a number of changes that we missed in the release notes. This was not intentional, and we are working to improve our processes to ensure that more accurate release notes are here in the future. Below is a list of the main changes that were either unintentional or not documented. So, decreased loot quality and amount from elite chests. This is an unintentional bug that was introduced with 1.1. We are investigating this issue and working on a fix, and we'll release it as soon as it's ready. So for those of you that did start to say, well, actually, I think looks worse when flagging, it's not that. It's that there's a bug with the elite chest, which is there you go, investigating and getting fixed as we talk about it. Removed horticulture gear from the game. This was an unintentional change. For more information, see this post. And if we flick over to this post there that they've just said about, basically, in our latest update, we made a mistake that treated all tiers of our in-game horticulture harvesting gear as future content and unintentionally removed it from the game. Obviously, you can see there's a fix there, but for me, that would suggest that there's farming or gardening or some sort of horticulture type stuff. As it says there, it's future content. So if that was me, I'd be keeping an eye on that, maybe looking to go get maybe gardens in houses or maybe some sort of farm in each kind of settlement area, who knows. But going forward, that looks like there could be something there, so keep an eye on that one. They have removed double luck from Weaver's Knot. This was an intentional change that we missed in the patch notes. We never intended for items to have double luck, and by design, items should not have multiple of any perks. We also did a tuning pass on a number of equipment shortly after the release that have just recently made their way into game. We made these changes because a number of new perks had been created but were not well represented on our named items. We updated a variety of our items with fixed perks to host the new effects, and we understand that this has disrupted some of your carefully tuned character builds. In the future, we will be more discerning and forthcoming about any changes that we made here. So a lot of you guys will know if you had some of those named items, we did see changes to them. They're saying they're going to work on that in the future. I really personally do wish they'd said that up front, because again, a lot of us had worked on builds specifically around certain things that we now have to change, which is a bit annoying, but you can expect it with kind of updates and build. I would just, again, like to see it in patch notes in further, but they've addressed that, so moving on. Elite POI difficulty tuning. A number of POIs were increased in difficulty. We increased the difficulty of bosses, increased the number of enemies, increased the level of some enemies, and adjusted the placement of some elite chests. These were intentional changes that were missed in the patch notes. We wanted to increase the challenge of the end game areas, and as part of a tuning pass, we also adjusted some of the paths that allowed players to attack enemies from safe areas or skip enemies entirely. I think that's pretty good. As part of this tuning pass, the named enemies in Ebonskill Reach had their difficulty incorrectly increased too much, and we will be turning them down in a future patch. And the Darkness Membranes in Great Cleave and Morningdale also had their difficulty incorrectly increased, resulting in enormous HP values, and we will be adjusting them down in a future patch also. So for my opinion, right now, skip Ebonskill Reach, skip the Darkness Membranes in Great Cleave and Morningdale, because right now they're bugged out, they're too OP. If you want to take them on, you've got a big group, then you could, but just for farming, trying to get your Void Gauntlet up, specifically Elite Zones are the best way to do it. I personally would just skip out those certain enemies there that are kind of bugged at the moment. And they've also removed elemental quintessences as rewards from gathering elemental creatures. This was an intentional change that was made as a result of the number of these enemies and their spawn rate being much higher than we originally designed for the rewards of the creatures. Our goal is to create a better balance between these creatures and the elemental stones and plants as sources of moats. So, as you guys will know, I mentioned it in yesterday's video, the water wolves, for example, now drop water moats instead of quintessences. That apparently is intentional, and essentially it gives you just a better source of moats, which for me, I think is a better change, because realistically, quintessences are good, but you can't downgrade them in the Arcana station, and you do need the moats for crafting void armor, so these are always going to sell pretty much, and of course, you can always upgrade them into the quintessences should you want to as well. They've also reduced the amount of wildwood required to make glittering ebony. This was an intentional change we made to make cost of glittering ebony in line with other epic crafting materials such as Asmodeum and Phoenix Weave. Player-to-player trading is now possible in expeditions, and this was an intentional quality of life improvement we forgot to document. Thank goodness for that. That's a really, really good one. So we can now trade inside of expeditions. Good. Players can now see which trophies they have equipped from the bio screen. This is another intentional quality of life improvement we missed. Again, very, very good. Really happy with that one. And also replaced Everfall's Well and Morningdale's statue with a fountain. This was an intentional change that was made in preparation for an upcoming player event. So for me, that's very exciting. They didn't document that. I actually own Everfall on the server I play on. I noticed this earlier. I wondered whether it coincided with us getting to the city rank on, you know, kind of the levels that you go up in settlements. Apparently not. Apparently it's for an upcoming player event. So for me, I'm thinking Christmas is less than a month away. We're probably going to see a Christmas tree going in there. So not officially confirmed, but do keep your eyes open for that one. Then we're moving on to crafting and trade skills here. It says that every trade skill has its importance to the overall economy within New World. At the highest level of trade skill mastery, you're capable of crafting some of the most powerful items in the game. Pursuing the materials and crafting those items are endgame activities that are beneficial for players who are looking to craft the perfect item, as well as create high-value items to be traded. We want most of those things that you craft as a trade skills cap to be able to be used by players who didn't craft those things, but we also like that some things are just for the folks who are capable of making them. As we continue development, we will continue to look through opportunities throughout the range of trade skills, levels, and endgame. So essentially, they're keeping some of the stuff bind on pickup. Particularly, we're looking at those named legendary items when you do get up to the top there on weaponsmithing, armor crafting. Obviously, void we can trade, but there's certain things that are bind on pickup rather than bind on equip, which is interesting. They're saying they're monitoring that and they may change it in the future, but right now it's staying the same. So again, let me know what you think about that in the comments. Personally, kind of like it, like they say there, it's kind of good because obviously it gives some incentive to level those skills up, but I would like it if some of the stuff could be traded, because obviously when you've crafted someone up to 200 weaponsmithing, 200 armoring, and then they can't trade stuff, it is quite annoying, so we'll have to see what goes on there. Then I've also got a stance on add-ons update, which says our overall goal on any form of add-on is simple. It should not provide an advantage over a player using the regular game client. This means that an add-on can recognize or present information normally displayed in a different way, or provide information that would normally require a different UI view to achieve. The idea with the map add-ons is that they fall under the latter category. We of course have an in-game map, and all they should be doing is display that map in a different way. It's okay for the map to have a different artistic style as long as it's equivalent to the information of the in-game map. We are working to see if we can establish a simple and secure way to publish data for add-on use. This would allow them to add functionality not currently available. So basically what they're saying is those maps, those add-on maps that you can get for your in-game mini-maps, if they display locations of resources, not okay. If they just display the map where you're going on the map and kind of an overall picture from, you know, a head-up view as a mini-map, that's fine. For me personally, I'm steering away from this until we get official notice on like links, what we can download, kind of real outset rules on this is absolutely fine, this is not, because right now it's still way too wishy-washy for me. And Amazon, if you do see this video at any point and you are going to look at this, please just establish some baseline rules that we know exactly what we're going to be doing with it. So let's make a list and say this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, and give some examples, and then do some examples of what is not okay, so that if we do, for whatever reason, get picked up by a system or an in-game system, myself or obviously any player, that says you're banned for using an add-on, we can say, well, actually, it relates back to this post by this developer or this community manager that says this part is fine, this is what the add-on's using. You can send that to an appeal and then obviously get it overturned, because realistically, right now, for me, personally, I would say it's not worth doing. So whether that's the intention, then that's absolutely fine, but if they are going to bring out something official on it, let's hope we can get some solid examples. That'd be really, really helpful. Now, here we go. This is what I was talking about earlier, gold selling players and bots. So based on the changes we've made in previous patches, reports of gold sellers are down by 70% from previous volumes, so substantial progress has been made, but this will always be a battle. As these bad actors adjust, so will we. We are also identifying and banning the spam accounts of the gold sellers more quickly. We're banning at a higher rate against bots who supply gold/materials and are expanding that weekly. We'll continue to be diligent on that front while looking for further ways to prevent the bots from intruding on your gameplay experience. Please continue submitting reports of players in game and use the correct report reason for the quickest resolution. So again, they are working on this good. That is really helpful. We do see a lot of spam in the chat, and it has been reduced, I would say, in the past few days, so it certainly is working. Let's just hope that this continues, because obviously the less of these guys around, the absolute better for us. And then we've also got an update on how housing points work. You will notice now as well, kind of going over this on a basic value, when you place stuff in your house, it will tell you plus how many points it gives, etc., how many stuff you've got left, which is really, really cool. I'm not going to go into that too much. Harvest the set gear, we talked about before as well. That was unintentionally taken out the game. They are going to bring that back and replace the lost items, targeting the next patch, so we should get those back very, very soon. Any player who has ever received a single piece of this gear will be rewarded with a full set of bind on equip horticulture gear at the highest tier that was ever earned. The gear score of the replacement gear will be at the highest limit allowed per tier. This includes all horticulture gear earned, whether you received it as a loot drop, or it was traded to you, or you purchased it from the trading post. These items will be distributed directly to players and show up as armor chest that will be delivered the full set of gear. So Personally, for me, if you've got any harvesting gear right now that you're trying to get rid of, that you want to sell, get it gone, because in literally like a couple of days' time, it's going to be, no one's going to want it. Everyone's pretty much going to have it. So sell that now if you do want to. And then finally here, they've got lost housing and compensation. On October 28th, we addressed an issue where players lost their houses and potential housing items. We have provided a fix to prevent players from losing their houses and housing items in the future. We were delayed in providing compensation for those who lost their houses, and this has now been addressed with the November monthly release. Players who lost their houses during the world restarts will have had their house restored, and if they are eligible to own a house in the settlement. If they cannot own another house, the house cost will be refunded and the furnishings returned to their storage. Please visit the settlement to start the restoration or refund. Thank you for reading our 3rd edition on updates on the current issues. We appreciate your continued support while we strive to make Eternum your in-game home. We're going to go take a bit of a holiday break and we'll see you next week. So they're having a little bit of time off right now, so we can't expect to see too many mad updates in the coming week. But after that, we should start to see a lot more stuff. They are still patching. They are still keeping an eye on moderation, of course. And I think this is a really good, transparent update. I'm very happy with a lot of the stuff we've seen from this. Going forward, we can only hope that they continue with this line of kind of communication, because it is excellent. And obviously, we just need to see the address to their nerfs. Like they said, the weapon balancing, they are going to tune that consistently. So let's hope we bring the Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet back up, because right now they're looking a little bit sad. Let's bring, them kind of in line with the Great Axe and the Warhammer. And let's have a little bit of a more look at the gold sellers. Other than that, it's looking pretty good. Let's hope to see we can keep this going in the future. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video, kind of bring you guys a roundup of where the developers are sat at, where the future of the game is looking to go, kind of what we're looking at as a community. If you have, be sure to leave a like on today's video. Make sure you are subscribed with the notification bell on so that you don't miss any future videos that I bring. I do upload every single day. I bring you guys news, updates, development blogs. I bring you guys events, bring you anything to do with in-game stuff, builds, little tips and tricks, anything like that. So if you are interested in New World content, do make sure you are subscribing. Other than that, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care and peace.